right, so today we have Miss Jennifer J. Palumbo from Manhattan, New York. Did I say it right? Did I pronounce it right?
You did. You're better than most phone operator people I speak to, so you're good.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Palumbo is she's a stand-up comedian. She's a writer. She's an author. She's a a writing coach, a publishing coach. She is heavily tied into helping out the autistic community. Um, and she's a wonderful mom and a wonderful person. Y'all, if y'all see her Instagram and her YouTube page and go to her videos on, oh my gosh, if y'all go to her YouTube page, you're gonna fall in love with her. I don't care who you are.
I gotta tell
Um,
my husband that. He'll fall in love with me all over again.
I know that's right. Yeah, so it's an honor to have you, Miss Palumbo. Before we start, I want to tell you thank you again, and I would also like to thank Miss Goldie Shots from Akron, Ohio, for sponsoring me with this shirt. It's from Comante, and it feels so good, y'all. And this is my second shirt that I got on my channel, and it means a lot because I love gifts. So yeah, Miss,
It looks comfy.
absolutely, it feels like I'm just getting hugged right now. But yeah, Miss Palumbo, I would like to tell you thank you again for coming on my show, and can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I mean, I like your introduction better. So I'm Jennifer J. Palumbo. I got the nickname J because there was a lot of Jennifers in my school. And when I was younger, I'm going to date myself. I loved Run DMC. And I was like, I'm telling you, rap's going to be the future. Like this idiot white girl in Long Island, all about Run DMC. And so, because of that, some of my friends called me Jam Master J, which is so ridiculous. Um, but it was a great nickname because it did separate me from the other Jennifers. So that was my nickname. Um, and uh, Palumbo, as you know, is Italian for pigeon, which is awful. Um, I did not take my husband's name because he was married once before. And my running joke is when his ex-wife stops using his name, then I'll use it. She's busy with it. So I'll just keep pigeon for the meanwhile. But basically, I have a very diverse background in that I was a theater major. I did stand-up comedy regularly for like 12 years. And then when I got married to another comic, and we started having some infertility issues. And the more I learned about infertility and women's health, and even men's fertility health, I realized that there wasn't a lot of access to care for it. So I kind of changed careers and started using my humor and writing skills to advocate for an increase in infertility coverage. And in New York, particularly in the last couple of years, we've had some really big successes. We passed a bill called the FAFSA bill, which is the fertility treatment to access care. I think I'm getting my acronyms screwed up, but it basically covers people in New York for 3 IVFs. And then this past year, we got a bill passed that legalized surrogacy in New York because we were like one of 3 states that hadn't legalized surrogacy, which is crazy to me. And from there, um, I still continue to advocate for the fertility community, but I did go on to have 2 children, and my oldest is on the autistic spectrum. And uh, again, I mean, talk about, I think the big thing with me is humor. Humor. It can really help educate the public. And certainly after watching a few of your shows, I think you're someone who supports humor as well. And so I try to always be respectful and use my humor wisely. Even just having a sense of humor about my son being on the spectrum has been helpful to me. But as you said, after my years of advocacy for that, I now advocate a lot for children on the spectrum. My latest thing, and then I'll shut up, is I have been trying to really draw attention to Black autistic lives, because the more I research, learn about it, and educated on it, it's really terrifying to me because I know how my son is being on the spectrum, and cops sometimes mistake it as they're being obstinate or they're on drugs or something. And when you marry the amount of shootings of African American men and then autistic, African American men, it's really frightening. And so that's certainly, believe it or not very funny and not something I try to use humor for, but something I try to raise attention on because I don't think people are talking about that enough.
I agree. I
That was
agree.
a lot, sorry, but
Mm,
that's me in a nutshell. I told you it's a
that's
lot of diversity.
yes, ma'am. That's fine. That's fine. I just watched a video last week of a guy who of a black family. They were in their house, and one of I believe it was a pastor house. It was a preacher household, and they called 911 and asked for an ambulance because they had an autistic child or autistic man. He was a grown man, but he still deals with autism,
Yeah.
and they ended up calling an ambulance and saying, "Please send the ambulance. We need some help because he's having an episode." They sent the police, and yeah, you know the rest.
It
The
happens
yeah,
so often. And I wrote about this for Forbes Women. I spoke to, her name is Renee Watts, and her brother's name is Stefan. And this story, I don't know how it's not making national headlines because the parents, just like you said, and this happens a lot, the parents called the police. They actually called the police for help. And her brother Stefan, he was, I think, 15 at the time. He's autistic on the spectrum. He was having kind of a meltdown. They called the police for help. This is in Chicago. 6 police showed up, which the father was like, I don't need 6 police officers. I just need like 1 or 2. And the house was even coded that there was a special needs child there. And the police came in, called down the stairs to Stefan. Stefan got spooked, I guess, and went to charge up the stairs, and the cops shot him and killed him in the house while his parents were home, and they were never charged or anything. And this happens so often. And I think when we talk about defund the police, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around that. But because they're not saying remove the police. They're just saying we could take some of that extra funds and maybe give it to people who specialize in mental health care. So in cases like Stefan, in the case like you mentioned, if you call the police, they'll send a mental health worker along with that police officer who understands the spectrum. Um, I don't know why this isn't talked about more. It drives me nuts because it's awful. As the mother of an autistic son, it makes me so sad because I know Michael, my son, doesn't mean to. Sometimes he just doesn't understand questions. Sometimes he doesn't behave in a typical way, um, but he's white, and so I don't think he would have the same even remote experience that a Black autistic child or their parent would have. And it concerns me very much.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Um, I don't know, like, and I'm seeing in my African community, I'm seeing a lot of people of my color saying it we can't call the police no more because every time we do it, it causes more problems. A lot of people where I'm from want to defund the police, but simply just the fact of every time the police kill somebody, that's where all the money needs to go to that family. Because like you said, uh, way more than 50% of the times when the officer kills somebody, especially of color, they get away with it, and then the
Yeah.
child the parents and the family still has to come out of pocket, and a lot of had to pay a lot of stuff. But on top of that, you can't put no money on nobody. You can't put a price on somebody's life. So with that being said, I don't know. A lot of people here say defund the police, but they don't want to they don't want to give it to certain communities like the mental health community or the women community. They want to give it right back to the communities of the lost people that we just, the lost American citizens who had to
Yeah, I
deal
mean,
with
I can
this.
even kind of understand that too. It's hard because Lord knows I don't have the answer, but I get why I and I even understand why some people get confused by defund the police because they think, like, even when the Capitol riots happened, everyone was like, "Oh, all those people said defund the police. I bet you're glad they're there now." And it was like, no, defund the police doesn't mean that there's no police officers ever.
For
It's
real.
basically what to do with those extra funds. But um, yeah, I don't know. I just like I don't know if it would help even an emotional health worker. I just think it would be better than cops trying to navigate it on their own because they obviously don't understand. I don't know if you've had experience with people on the spectrum. They you can ask them a question and they'll repeat it instead of answering it. And again, all these cops think, oh, this guy's being a smartass, or he's taken something, he's not listening to me, or they have like tics. Like my son likes to, he like memorizes parts of Disney movies and repeats them over and over again. So if you're trying to ask him a question, sometimes, I'll be like, hey, stop scripting. That's what I call it. And other people will, I don't know, like have a physical tic. And there's just no real understanding of autism. People always ask me, this is where the humor comes in. When I tell them that my son's autistic, they're like, oh, does he have any special powers? And I'm like, he's autistic. He's not radioactive. I think because people see movies like Rain Man and they think it's a documentary where my son's going to be great at Las Vegas and like counting cards. And it's like, yes, they do have sometimes, they're in tune with certain sensory sensory areas that other people aren't, like numbers, or like my son remembers dates very well. But they're not special powers. Um, but I think again because what the public knows about autism is from movies like Rain Man and some sort of stereotype of it, that there's still so much need for awareness. There's so much. It's hard.
Yes, ma'am. Me personally, I don't. In my immediate family, I've been lucky to not have anyone with mental health issues. But as far as like my community is definitely out here. Like especially like I grew up in a church. Like at my church we have a lady named Miss Cat. She has a son who has um is it called mental disabilities? I'm not sure what it's called.
Well, it's funny. It's a big conversation actually within the topic. Within the topic. Why do I keep saying it? Within the within the space. I need more coffee. But because some people call it developmental delays. And then some say, okay, you're on the autistic spectrum. So it's kind of like a spectrum of, different um, issues that you may have. So you may be high functioning, you may be low functioning, you may be higher on the spectrum. And then I recently met someone who called it neurodiversity, which I thought was such a positive way of putting it, is that um, neurotypical is certainly the more, it's another way of saying normal, but I try to avoid the word normal as much as possible. Um, but it sounds like her son may have developmental delays of some sort. How old is he?
He it's been like this all his life, but now he's probably 14, 15. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, I'm not sure. But neurodiversities. He has
Yeah. And I just was
neurodiversities.
introduced to that last week. It's every time I post anything about autism or I write an article about autism, I get so much angry emails from the autistic community. I've kind of gotten used to it um, because I think there's still so much uncertainty, even how you self identify or how you identify someone else. Like, even I'm still struggling as a parent. Do I say that my son is autistic? Or do I say he's on the spectrum? Because am I labeling him by saying he's autistic, or am I educating people by saying? I have no idea. But every time I write something, I always get all of these angry comments like, oh, you should say neurodiverse, or um, don't say this, and then someone else will say the opposite. But what I really try to do, because I'm really winging it as a parent, um, I try to listen to all the criticism, because more often than not, they say something that's actually really helpful. And that neurodiversity, he actually posted one of my recent articles on LinkedIn. It was about how people on the spectrum have 80% unemployment, which is awful. And so I wrote this article about it, and this man posted on LinkedIn and basically criticized me. And he said, you should have looked at it from, they need, they're qualified workers. They just have a hard time getting through the interview
Like you
process.
don't know that.
What you said?
Like he's saying that like you don't know that, like you don't deal with it every day.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. But basically, he's trying to say I could have made it more positive, because it was about a hiring initiative that Dell was doing. And instead of making it that, I guess he was saying I made it sound like Dell was doing these people a favor when they were actually the best people for the job. It's just they had to go through a different type of interview process that a neurotypical person would have to. And so, I mean, I never, no one wants to be criticized, but I'm like, well, that's actually a good point, because maybe I did make it seem like Dell was doing a charity when they aren't. And so I asked to talk to him, and we talked on the phone last week, and he was the one who told me about neurodiversity. And we're talking again next week. Um, I think that is something so important, to kind of check your ego for a second and see if what the person's saying maybe has some validity to it. And if they don't, and if you're like, that's bullshit, then screw it. But if you're
Absolutely.
like, well, wait a minute, that may actually have a point and I could be missing something, I wish more people would do that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Miss Palumbo, I would like to say, man, anytime somebody negative comes on my channel or it sends me a negative email, because I get them every day.
I was just about to ask you, do you ever get any?
I had 5 this morning when I woke up.
But for what? Like what?
Um, because I have women who are entrepreneurs on here. I have women who are priests and pastors. I have women who are escorts, prostitutes, strippers. I don't judge nobody. I'm so against discrimination. Like, and it's my channel is very diverse. You
Mm-hmm.
might see you, I don't know, somebody might see you as a comic on here one video, and the next video somebody might see a girl shaking their butt, and it's like, I like, oh dude, you can't do this, you're not for women's rights. How you want for women's rights and you don't want these, and you let these women do whatever? Like, man, look, I'm grown. If you say something negative to me, I'm gonna block you. I don't care what you know. You might be right, they might have some validity to it, but that negative, that off from the start of our conversation, if you're coming to me disrespectful or negative, I don't want to listen to anything you say, even if you have $1 billion for me. It's not worth it. So with that being said, Miss Palumbo, you better than me. Anytime I get a negative email, I mute them, I block them. Anytime I get a negative text message or Instagram DM, I block them, or comment, I block them. Like, I don't have nobody on my. You won't never see nothing negative on anything on my channel. Like, if you
Yeah.
do, it won't last 30 minutes, or until I finish my interview, and so I can delete it. Like, I don't play that. No, you're not about to come on my platform and talk disrespectfully about me. Now, if you go ahead and take all the time out your day to make a LinkedIn post and criticize everything I say on it, like they did with you, okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. Go ahead, but I'm not about to pay it no mind. It's no, because I know
Yeah,
no.
I mean, I definitely think you shouldn't feed the trolls. I mean, and there's sometimes, like when I wrote something about IVF, this was the Huffington Post years ago. I wrote, you have a 1 in 8 chance of being, I don't know, I can't remember the title, but it was something about, you have a 1 in 8 chance of hurting someone's feelings. It was something like that. Because basically 1 in 8 deal with infertility. And so every time you ask someone, when are you going to have kids? Why don't you have kids yet? The whole article was about, can you just try to be empathetic for a second? You don't know, when you ask somebody, if that person just had a miscarriage, or if they just spent $10,000 on an IVF cycle that didn't work. And so it was actually an article about being empathetic towards those who have infertility issues, and those comments were hateful. Like
Absolutely.
some of them were just awful. Like, and that I wouldn't necessarily interact with. If it's like, well, maybe they don't deserve to have kids, or God's telling them they'd be a bad parent, like something like that. I don't have time and energy. That's not a real intelligent argument. I don't know what the hell that is. That's judgmental, I guess. And you don't. That's not going to be productive. But I feel like if someone brings up an interesting point, I'm like, all right, well, let's talk more about it. But I think that's the biggest thing is separating the just people being, I don't know, just spewing vitriol because they can hide behind a computer or an iPhone or whatever, or people really being like, hey, just so you know, that's not cool. And let me explain to you why. You're right. I think the approach has something to do with it. If someone's just shooting off a crappy message, that's not really productive. But if they really want to be heard and they have a point, they need to approach you much more respectfully than that.
Absolutely, Miss Palumbo. I don't tolerate anything like that on my page. I do not.
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, I applaud you because you take the time out and give it some of your attention. I don't. As soon as I see something I don't like, you getting blocked. It's too many positive people in this world for me to be worried about the negative people. If you go on YouTube right now and type cute animals or cute little babies or cute little puppies or anything like that, and you will see so much hate in those comments for no reason. So with that being said, if you're doing anything good, they're gonna talk bad about you. If you're doing anything bad, they're gonna talk about you. If you just
Yeah.
minding your business, they're gonna talk about you. And I'm
Right.
not having it. I'll let you
Right.
talk, but you won't talk on this channel. You're gonna have to talk about me, and then have all your friends come to my channel and say, "Oh, he's really a cool dude." I don't know why they said that about him.
But you hit the nail on the head because I really firmly believe that if you just keep being who you are and doing what you do, that even when someone says something shitty, then people will make up their own minds for themselves. And I learned that in high school because I dated this one jerk who
Dang.
had like spread rumors about me. And this is so funny to even think about now. And I learned that then because I'm like, I can't. And it was totally not true that I was this, that I was that. I'm like, I'm just going to keep being myself, ignore it, and hopefully people will figure it out eventually. And when people got to know me and they had their own ideas of who I was and blah, 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 and then they compared it to what this guy said, they're like, oh, that doesn't match at all. I really think in the end, people do figure out what the truth is, or who you are. And so I do think there's something to be said for that. You know exactly what you said. Just I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and people will definitely make up their own minds. People are too arrogant not to.
For real.
They're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to let people tell me who I should like and not like. I still think ultimately when people watch your show and get to know you, then they're going to have their own opinion, and whatever crap anyone else says, I don't think it'll mean anything.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That was a great answer, Miss Palumbo. Um,
Sorry.
all right, so Miss Palumbo, my
Mm.
next question for you is, okay, so how long have you been an author?
Oh God. Um. Well, so I've written a chapter in a book, but right now, actually, next week I'm going to be working on a book proposal. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be my own book from start to finish. And it's going to be a series of short comical essays, kind of like David Sedaris or maybe a little bit Fran Lebowitz, not as sardonic. But I've been writing. It's so funny. I hope this makes sense. So I started doing. Oh, let me go back further. So when I was in school, my teachers all thought I was an idiot. They just, I think I didn't learn the way most kids learn. I just got really bored with school, the sitting and I'll read chapter 4 and, spit it back. I didn't find it engaging. And so, if there was a teacher who did something really out of the box and creative, then I would do really well in that class. It's like the regular curriculum of school was just so not appealing to me. It didn't engage me. And because of that, they thought I was slow. And they basically like put me in remedial classes and all of this other stuff. And so I just thought, well, I can't write. I'm not good at anything. I'm good at being funny. And so I'll just do stand up comedy or acting or whatever. So I started doing stand up in I think 1998 or 1999. And even then, there weren't very many female comics. It was just ridiculous. I would do a show and I would regularly be the only woman on the show, which is both the club's fault and society's fault. Because sometimes they were like, oh, all right, well, we have one woman, so we don't need more than one woman, even though there are other female comics. But I remember the best was I did a show at the Friars Club and they were talking about the lineup for the show. And they're like, okay, Dave will go up, Bob will go up. We'll throw Jay up there just to break things up. And then this guy. So it's like I was a bookend. But I started doing stand up comedy, and everyone kept saying to me, your stuff is really well written. You're a good writer. I remember this one woman, her name is Marilyn Sokol, and she actually was in the movie Foul Play with Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase, and she's a like well-known character actress. She was like, "You're such a good writer." And the fact that she said it to me, I'm like, these people are crazy because I can't write. I like barely made it through school. And then this is so embarrassing now in retrospect. I'm like, wait a minute. I can talk and I can perform and say things in front of people. Writing is a written form of talking. And for now I'm like, well, duh. But at the time, I think I had to get out of my own head and my own insecurities that I couldn't do it because I that's what I always thought. And so I started to write around the same time that I started doing stand up, probably maybe a year into it. And then I was getting hired to write for other comics and other people, and I started getting more writing work. And I I really now writing is pretty much all I do. Um, especially now during COVID, I can't do a lot of shows, which I miss. But um, it's just so funny to me now to look back. I mean, and it just goes to show you, like even when you talk about, scaling and creating a bigger platform for yourself and having a talk show. Um, I really think anything's possible. Abraham Lincoln, yes, I'm going to quote Abraham Lincoln, had this quote that the best way to know your future is to create it. And that's what you're doing now. You're creating your reality by, I want to have this great talk show, and now you're having it. And now it's just a matter of scaling it. And I think that's what I learned from that whole experience is I always wanted to be a writer or express myself in some way, and I never thought I could do it. And it's just, I think about change your own thinking and just actually doing it. Like just start writing or start cooking if you want to be a chef or just whatever it is. I think you just have to start doing it. So um, it's been, I guess, 20 years. Oh my God. But I feel like I'm just still learning and getting better, but still always learning. And now with this book that I'm going to try to work on, it'll be another level of trying to learn something new. But I'll get it. I'm determined.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What are some things in the writing community that you had to find out later on, being the author, that you wish people would have told you when you first started out?
Pitching is really difficult. Pitching articles. And one thing, and believe it or not, I still feel confused about it, even though I've been published now. Some places do not want a complete piece. Um, so I had written a piece about basically how children on the spectrum have a higher risk of being sexually abused. And I wrote this whole piece and interviewed people and wrote it and started shopping it around. And some of the places they were like, like you finished it, we don't want it finished. And so there are certain places where you have to just put a pitch like, hey, I want to write a story about this is what I want to cover, I'm going to interview these people. And then there are other places like Scary Mommy, for example, They want you to send in a complete piece. And so I think you have to really, whatever field you're in, try to talk to someone who has experience in it and being like, wait a minute, I just need to know, what do I need to know? Because it is kind of tricky to navigate when um, it's a space that you're not familiar with. And so I wish someone had told me, find out before you send something somewhere what they want, full piece or just a pitch, or ideas or certain things like that. But that would have been helpful.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My next question for you is, what are some things that? Nope. I'm gonna ask you this: what have been three of your most favorite memories being a stand-up comedian so far?
Oh my God, there's so many. The first one and will always be, I think it was February 2nd. I think it was 1999. Actually, we're coming up on it. And I was at Caroline's on Broadway, and it was the first time my parents saw me perform, and everybody was there. It was like 300 people in the audience, but for some reason, my parents were always scared to see me perform, especially my mom, because she was like, if you, my mom was like, if you suck, I'll have to tell you. I was like, I don't, it'll be fine. And I had a video of me performing at the Comedy Cellar, and so I sent it to my parents. My mother was even terrified to watch it. And my dad watched it. My dad's very funny. And he saw that I could do it. And then he was fine. He was like, once I saw that you could do it, then I'm cool with it. So this show, my dad talked my mom into going. It was like like pretty much all of the Palumbo family was there, just a table of Italians and 300 people. And honest to God, and I say this with the utmost humility, I did a very good set. It was a really good night. And, I'm at Caroline's on Broadway, amazing club, 300 people. My parents are there. I did really well. It was awesome. It was definitely, that's probably one of the highlights of my stand-up career, if not the. Um, then, God, there's so many, it's so hard to choose the next two. One of them was, just because it's hilarious now, and you can find this online. If you Google Lady Gaga 2006, The Cutting Room, I introduced Lady Gaga on stage before she became famous. And the reason it's so funny to me is not because of simply that, but so I'm at the cutting room and I'm hosting this show, and her real name is Stephanie, I think Dramata or something like that. And one of her managers, and they were like, oh, she's going to make it big. She's coming out with her first album. So even then, it was like she was hot shit. And they were like, don't say Stephanie Dramata, introduce her as Lady Gaga. And I went, okay. And so as I'm getting to go up on stage, I'm thinking, what a stupid name. Like Lady Gaga, what the hell? Like she's ripping off a Queen song. And I don't know, I just thought it was ridiculous. And the manager gave me this introduction. She's just been signed by such and such record. And so I go up there. This is all on film. You can definitely see it. And I read the introduction, and I'm like, so ladies and gentlemen, Lady Gaga. She comes on stage, she gets to the piano and the microphone, and then she corrects my whole introduction. That her manager gave me. She's like, I didn't sign with so and so. I signed with such and such. And I'm like, I don't know. And then I hung out with her mom while she performed. Her mom was so nice, and they're Italian, so paisans. So that's a favorite memory, just because looking back, I was clearly wrong, and it's hilarious because yesterday she performed at the inauguration, and I most recently probably performed in my kitchen for my family. So clearly, she knew what she was doing more than I did. So that's the second one. The third one, oh Lord, there's a lot. There's a lot of great memories, especially because my husband was a headliner at clubs called the Comedy Zone. They're all over the United States, and I would travel with him periodically, and maybe get a spot on the show. It was really fun doing shows with him, um, particularly when the audience realized we were married. They always just thought that was so cute. Um, and I miss that, but definitely the comics life is hard. But I would say probably the third one is some of the funnier shows that we did that were definitely nuts. There was one show, if you don't mind me going on for a second. There was one show that I was hosting, and it was at this club on Long Island, and Long Island, New York. Sorry for those of you who don't know. They had shows at 8 o'clock, and then another one at I think it was 10:30. It was a long night, and so at 8 o'clock, I'm the MC. I host a show, and there were like two, three comics that night. They usually call them the MC, the feature, and the headliner. So the feature act had this joke about how he saw this, you know, documentary on a woman who didn't have any arms, but she could still do just as much as anyone else. And his joke was, well, she got kind of seems sort of smug. She can't applaud, if I do a good joke. And so the audience laughed. Fine. So now we're on to the 10:30 p.m. show. And so I do my shtick, I bring the guy up, and I go to the bar. And I hear him make the same joke that he made at the 8 o'clock, but this time there's dead silence. And I'm like, what is going on? Because, like, audiences are like the ocean. Like, you just hear them periodically, like, laughing. And so I went into the main room, and another comic was there, like, making a face. And I went, what? He goes, the woman in the front row doesn't have any arms. I was like, oh, Jesus, what are the odds? It was so uncomfortable. And I think she basically ended up laughing at the joke, and then everyone else laughed. But oh my God. And my husband was there that night. We were like, we could not believe the odds that he would have this joke, and there's a woman in the audience with no arms. Can you believe that?
Mm,
It was awful and funny. It was funny for me, not for the guy who made the joke.
absolutely.
Oh my God, he wanted to die.
um, Miss Palumbo, my next question for you is, what are some things not okay from the outside looking in for me? Because I love looking at. Okay, all time favorite. My favorite stand up comedian is Richard Pryor. Just to let
Mm-hmm.
that be known, that's my dog. But yeah, so me, I just love watching stand-up comedian acts, whether it's on YouTube or Netflix or a movie or something. But I just see it as from the fan standpoint. What are some things not talked about? What are some things not noticed from the outside community that comedians have to deal with?
Oh God, a lot. There's a lot of like here, I'll give you one thing that I don't think anyone knows, and that, well, not anyone, but most people don't know. There's a union for actors. There's a union for musicians, freelancers. There's no union for stand-up comics. And so you don't have anyone to go to if you get screwed over. And from what I understand, because again, I haven't performed in a while, especially due to COVID, um, comics are getting paid almost the same thing they were getting paid 12 years ago. You know what I mean? And they've tried to, over the years, form a union and never is successful. I don't know why. But comics really get paid unless they're huge. Like, unless you're like Dave Chappelle or Jerry Seinfeld or Amy Schumer, you're not going to get paid a whole lot. You're constantly hustling and struggling to get work, and the industry doesn't make it easy. And then the other thing that I do think is worth mentioning, in order to get started in comedy, there's this thing that they do, and I get why they do it, but it's nuts. They call them bringer shows. So let's say you're just starting out as a stand-up comic and you want to perform somewhere, you can go to open mics. But if you want to like do a show at like say Gotham, or Comedy Cellar or Stand Up New York, there's a bunch of them. They say, okay, if you bring to the show 5 people that pay a cover charge and 2 drink minimum, we'll give you a 10-minute spot. And so all these new talent showcases, that's what they call them. Um, if you could be the funniest person in the world, but if you couldn't get any friends to come to your show, you won't get stage time. And it's almost unfair because people then who, I don't know, come from religious Mormon families, have like 20,000 relatives, they may be crap, but they'll get more stage time because they constantly bring in people for the club. And so it's really difficult to kind of progress when you have a hard time even getting stage time to even do anything. And basically, you have to do bringer shows for a long time. And then when a club owner says, oh, you know what, that person's really good, they call it passing. Like, oh, I passed it at Caroline's, I passed at Comedy Cellar, or something like that. And then they start giving you spots on the regular shows. Um, but the bringer shows, again, I get it because they're covering their costs, they're guaranteeing audience members, and it can be great, especially if you do bring people, because then you're guaranteed like a pretty full audience. But it's a lot of stress and struggle. I remember like there'd be months where I like had to really beg people to come see my show so I could actually get up on stage. I mean, that it's not a good feeling.
That sucks.
But
That sucks. It's like,
yeah,
and from all the stuff that you're telling me, what I'm concluding to is the stand up. Most of it's that from your experience coming out of New York, right?
yeah,
Okay, so in New York, if you're trying to be a stand up comedian, expect everybody to push you down. Expect not a lot of people to help you out.
yeah. I mean, that's why, when we were talking privately, and you were like, oh, if I say anything that would offend you, you have to be so not just tough, but really, I think confident, not arrogant, but confident that you'll get there, you'll make it through, and also that you can deal with any situation. But I mean, if I told you, and Ali Wong just talked about this too, if I told you the amount of sexual harassment stories in stand up, we'd be here all week, maybe longer. But I definitely there was a comedy booker for the Montreal Comedy Festival. And I don't know if he's still part of it. Um, but he was basically like, if you don't sleep with me, you're never going to get another audition for the Montreal Comedy Festival. And I'm even telling the story as nice as possible because he was literally following me down a street after a show, yelling at me to sleep with him. You're never going to get another audition because I had auditioned, I think once or maybe twice. And you get invited to audition. And after that incident, and I did not sleep with him. I got on the subway and went home. I never was asked to audition again, and I never got another chance to audition again. And the Montreal Comedy Festival is kind of a big deal. Um, so that's just one example. I've had guys corner me in the green room. Um, Women would be like, "Oh, watch out for that booking agent." Like you just have to be like, oh, you know, to try to be funny um, when you're trying to fight off disgusting people. And it wasn't even the audience members; it was usually other comics or club owners or um, usually someone who had some sort of position of power. So certainly to be a woman, it was not easy. I mean, like I said, there were things I loved about it, but it's it's exhausting and it's a bummer.
I'm glad I wasn't there with you.
Well, there was one club I had to always bring a guy friend with me, and the club doesn't exist anymore. Um, but it was in the summer, and I remember we had shows like every Friday. It was like this regular Friday show for tourists, and it was like in Times Square. And this one guy in the green room would always just hassle me or say things or one time after he like kind of blocked me in the green room and I had to figure out how to get around him, that's when I would ask different guy friends like, hey, can you just, and I wasn't seeing anyone at the time, I was like, can you just come with me so I can do this show? And so that actually really helped. and God bless my male friends for coming. One of my friends was like a personal trainer, and he came with me just so I could perform. And he was like, he like took it. Like, he had his arms crossed. He was like my bodyguard. But I don't. I mean, hopefully it's gotten better. I don't know. I don't know. But it was really frustrating. It was, ugh, yeah. But definitely not easy. I mean, even look now. Amy Schumer, Ellen DeGeneres, Ali Wong, Wanda Sykes. I'm trying to think of other famous female comics, like really famous, where everyone knows their name. There are some other great female comics, but maybe they're not as well known. They're still in the minority um, in the stand-up field, and hopefully, it'll get to a point where we're not even saying female comics; we're just saying they're a comic. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Um, Comics, regardless of their race, don't get enough credit because y'all always make us laugh. Like, y'all are the most entertaining people in the world. I feel like it. I could watch stand up all day. I don't need to
Yeah,
watch
I could too.
TV. I don't need to watch cartoons. I need to watch cartoons, but I don't need to watch romance shows. I don't need to watch action shows. I don't, I can watch stand up all day long and be just as happy. Like, but no, it's that's not okay. I did not know the industry in New York was like, no, if you don't do what we tell you to do, even if it's illegal or even if it's taking off your clothes, you're not ever about to work with us or anybody we have anything to do with. We're gonna tarnish your name. It's like, what?
Yeah,
I could be
and
the best
even
comic in the world and still y'all don't show me no love.
yeah,
That's
and even
stupid.
there was another female comic after that whole Montreal Comedy Festival thing happened with me. There was an older female comic, and she was like, "My advice: the next time you see him, just be like, hey, what's up?" She's like, "There's nothing you can do about it." That was her advice, and it's not bad advice. It just was the reality. Like, there's if I made a stink about it. I mean, it's just like the whole Harvey Weinstein thing. There was just nothing to do about it, but just suck it up, Buttercup, and just keep, like we said earlier, just doing what you do. But the thing about stand up to me, I feel like stand up is similar to rap music in that a lot of people think, oh, I could do that. It's easy. They're just rapping or they're just telling jokes. I can do that. And then you see someone do it badly and you're like, oh,
For
like
real.
maybe there actually is some skill to it. But stand up, it's a certain way of thinking and looking at the world. And there are definite, there's a lot of skill to it. I mean, and to me, I'm in love with Dave Chappelle because the thing that he does, which Richard Pryor did do as well, I just feel like Dave Chappelle really gets more into it. He has some real long, serious sections. Hannah Gadsby, too. How could I forget Hannah Gadsby? And it's like a new way. Well, maybe it's not that new, but it seems it. It seems like Trevor Noah and even Stephen Colbert and some of these more modern comics now are really reflecting back real problems, and they're putting it in some lighthearted stand-up, some really truth-telling stand-up, but then they have these sections where they use to kind of make people think about whatever's going on. And certainly that's, I think, why late night talk shows have been so great lately because of Trump. There's just endless material there. But Dave Chappelle, particularly, like there are just times where I watch his shows and you forget you're watching a stand-up act. I mean, and then at the same time, he's hysterically funny. But then, like, you get to a section and you forget, and you just think you're listening to a really engaging talk.
TED Talk.
Um, yeah, exactly. And so like when I watched that lately, and Hannah Gadsby show Nanette, which I know some people were like, well, is it really a stand-up show or a one-woman show or whatever? She had some really funny stuff in there and then some really hardcore heavy stuff. And I was watching it being like, God, I wish I could perform now and start doing that because I do think that's an incredible skill, and comics have to have a really strong mind and strong writing skills to pull that off because you're being an instant protagonist. The audience has to relate to you immediately. And unlike acting or even a book or most anything else, you can kind of blame, oh well, the director didn't do a good job, or the set designer, blew it, or yeah, my acting partner, she wasn't giving me anything. But as a stand-up comic, it's you, the audience. You know if it's going well while you're still on stage. And yes, you can have some bad audiences. You can have maybe distractions in the club or a mic that doesn't work, but primarily it's you and you alone. And either you're going to make it work or you're not. And so you can't really hide behind anybody else or anything. You have to be good, or you'll know immediately you suck.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My next question for you is, what are your three favorite Dave Chappelle segments or skits?
Oh my God. For some reason, anything with Eddie Murphy cracks me up. I mean, him and the Prince basketball segment is so funny to me. And then when Rick James punched him in the mouth, that really, I mean, come on, that was really legendary famous. I also
For
love
real.
the sketch he did where he was like a racist leader because he was blind and he didn't know that he himself was African American. That was so funny. Um, and then, believe it or not, it was one of the Netflix shows that he did recently. And this wasn't a routine, but he talked about racism and stepping back when you look at something happening, like when you are up close looking at an elephant, you just see like gray, but then you come back and then you see, more of the trunk and the thing. And he was talking about certain historical instances of racism and how in the end, maybe there's some good that came out of it. And then he throws in this really like out of nowhere callback. That's what the comics call it, when you call back to an earlier joke. And it was brilliant to me because it was so thought provoking, honest, definitely Richard Pryor esque in being like, no bullshit, this is the reality of what's going on. And then it was also kind of hopeful, optimistic, and positive, but then he still managed to throw in a little Dave Chappelle uh, ism, I guess, if you will, with like, because he basically told the whole joke, and I think the last line was something like, "And then I kicked her in the pussy." And he like made this incredible, powerful statement about racism and how we can address it, and then ends with that. I just thought that was brilliant.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Um, I tell everybody Richard Pryor my favorite comedian, but I think it's instilled in me. My granddaddy used to have the cassette tapes that he used to
Mm.
play in the car, and it's like there's no video. All you have, it's like our music. We ride around, going to the grocery store, going to town with Richard Pryor in my ear. So I don't know. I'm biased. I'm biased. So
But I think
biased.
they're so great because when I was a kid, my parents used to listen to a lot of. This sounds crazy. You know the show All in the Family?
Hmm.
It's an oldie. They had it on 8 track and they would play it on 8 track, even though it was a television show. And then I would listen to, my dad liked Woody Allen. And so we listened to Woody Allen stand up. And what I realized from that is, something's really well written if you don't have to see the
When
person.
you don't need a seat, you can just hear it. That's greatness.
Yeah. And that's exactly what you're saying. When you can just listen to Richard Pryor, you don't really need, I mean, it's great to see him, but you don't need to, because that's how engaging he is as a performer, but also that's how strong his writing is. And whenever I watch shows now, I kind of judge it on whether or not I listen to it and I'm still engaged or not. Um, because then I think, to me, a real key of writing. Like, you think of some shows, I don't know, and you're like, if I didn't watch this and I just had to listen to
It'll
it, I
be
would shut it
stupid.
off.
I met Miss Palumbo. I judge stand up comedians by if I can play your stuff on my TV and I can go walk to the bathroom. I'm going to turn it up. I'm going to make it real loud. I'm going to walk to the kitchen to get some food or something. And it's like
Yeah,
the whole time while I'm doing something else away from the TV, I'm still listening to it. Like, absolutely. For sure.
yeah.
Like, all right, boom, Family Guy. I can have Family Guy on all day without even watching it. It could just be on my computer. But
Yeah.
I done seen almost every episode, so I already know. I can no, that don't count. I pictured it in my head, but I don't know. It's I'm weird,
I
Miss
actually think
Palumbo.
now I gotta listen to. I don't know because it's animated, so they want you to probably look at it. But Family Guy, I wonder about The Simpsons earlier stuff. I think you could probably just listen to it. I don't know about now because there used to be like season. I would say 1 through 9 were really well written. There were some smart lines in there. Like I remember Bart was trying to get a pair of new shoes and he didn't want to get any, and his mother was like, "Oh, it's for church." And Bart says, "Well, Jesus wore sandals." And then Homer said, "Yeah, but maybe if he had better arch support, they wouldn't have caught him." It just cracked me up. It was very witty. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know about now. I think Family Guy and South Park kind of influenced uh, The Simpsons. So, like The Simpsons, I think over time to keep up started to become more like South Park and Family Guy.
I think so too.
Yeah, I have to check in. I ever since I had kids, I can't watch any quality television anymore. Everything's Pixar and Disney.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My next question for you, Miss Palumbo, is what's your zodiac sign?
Scorpio. And I read once that we are blessed with seminal fluids. I don't know what the hell that means.
With what fluids?
Seminal fluids. I literally read that in a book. I don't know if that means we receive a lot of semen or we produce a lot of semen and we're a man, but that's what they said. We're very sexual. This was a shock to me. And a little, aren't they known as like hot tempered Scorpios? I used to be when I was younger.
What? Not Miss Jennifer. No way. No way.
No, I'm talking when I was like a kid though. Like I'm talking about because my mom said I used to have tantrums all the time because I was pissed about something. But it was like when I was a kid, like 5, 6 years old, I would have such a big hothead temper. And then I don't know what changed. I don't know. Maybe I lost energy. I'm like, oh, screw it. But now I wouldn't say I'm hot tempered. I actually believe in the 24-hour rule. So if I ever do get a strong reaction, I don't do anything for 24 hours. I'm like, oh, I better invoke the 24-hour rule because I'm about to say something that is not well thought out. Um, I don't know. I don't know what made me change a bit, but definitely was hot tempered as a kid.
You're better than me. I have no 24. I have a 24-second rule. If I don't say nothing in 24 seconds, something going no.
I cannot. Let me tell you something. The 24-hour rule has been a game life changer because for me, I'm quick witted, but when it comes to like emotions, I need time to calm down and process it. And there have been so many times where I'm like, all right, I'm not like someone will write me something. I'm like, well, I'm about to like write something heated. And then I'm like, nope, let me do the 24-hour rule. And then I think of other arguments I can make in that 24 hours. It almost like strengthens my case. Like the next morning I'll be like, oh, and they also said I should do this. Remember the time they did this and they did that. So I feel like by the time 24 hours are over, I'm calmer and I have more of a composed thought. And it's also there are also times I don't know if you've ever had this happen. Please let me know where you react to something, and then the more you either read the email or the text or think about the conversation, you're like, oh, maybe I didn't get that right actually. Like, let me reread it, and then you're like, oh shit, they weren't asking what I thought they were asking at all. So there
For
have been
real.
times where I'm about to flip out, and then when I read it, I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't send that email because I'm wrong. They did send me that, or they did tell me that. So I cannot stress to you enough. 24-hour rule. It's the way to go.
Absolutely. I need to get like that, Miss Palumbo. But right now, the 20. I have 24 seconds to say something, and usually I always say something that rhymes with Chuck you. That's all I'm gonna say for sure. Sorry.
That's fair. Well,
Um.
sometimes that's the best answer, depending on the question.
Yeah, that's my answer a lot. But I try to be with Miss Palumbo. If I end up saying Chuck you, you did something wrong. I'm so
Yeah.
chill. I'm so laid back. I love everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't know, but there are a lot of negative people in this world who need to hear Chuck you every day.
That's
But
right.
yeah.
Sometimes they do.
All right, so Miss Palumbo, my next question for you is, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Has blue always been your favorite color?
Yeah, I think so. And it's weird to me because I don't know. It just not to be gender stereotypical, but I guess usually people like red or pink or whatever. But blue, I think there's so many different shades of it um, that just really capture my moods. You know, like dark blue and ocean blue. And my husband has blue eyes. It was one of the things I liked about him most because I don't have blue eyes. But yeah, I just always loved blue.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
I mean,
ma'am.
even I guess it's the start of blue what I'm wearing now. Sorry, it just occurred to me.
Right, absolutely. My next question for you is, what's your favorite number?
13.
Has 13 always been your favorite number?
Yes, I was born on the 13th. And in Italian, in Italy, 13 is considered a lucky number. And I kind of like, I like that something that's considered unlucky in the United States, I am embracing as lucky. I just like being a little different, and embracing it as my favorite number. Even though people are like, there's like some buildings that don't have the 13th floor because they're worried about bad luck, and I'm like, ha, it's my favorite number.
For real. I don't know. Some people are just too opinionated. That's it.
That's right. You got to shake things up.
My next question for you is, what are your five favorite foods?
Oh God, cheese one. We had KFC last night. I got to say that was really good. That just hit the spot. My husband was all about it. KFC. Let's see what else. My five favorite foods. I really do love cheese, but I can't have that on there twice.
You can say cheese twice if you want, Miss Palumbo.
Well, I mean, I have an obsession with cheese. Um, I honestly octopus. I love octopus. Um, it's almost like a comfort food for me. Maybe again because I'm Italian, but oh my God, I love it. I love fish overall, except not that nasty fish, like not tilapia or salmon, but like shrimp and calamari and squid and octopus and stuff like that. Sushi, that's four. Sushi definitely. So it's cheese, KFC, octopus, sushi, and does Starbucks count?
Uh, yes, ma'am. But I'm gonna ask you what's your favorite drinks later on too.
Oh, okay. All right. Fifth food, macaroni and cheese. Oh my God, how could I leave that off? Yeah, macaroni and cheese.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My next question for you is, what are your five favorite restaurants?
You know, I have a soft spot for McDonald's. I just do. When I was pregnant, I lived at McDonald's, especially my second child. I drank so many vanilla shakes because I had heartburn. Oh my God, it felt so great. So McDonald's was medicinal for me in that sense. Uh, and then Nobu, which is really expensive in Shishi, but for a birthday treat, you can't go wrong. Um, Really nice restaurant in Tribeca. It's co-owned by Robert De Niro. That's if you want to go big. What's my third favorite restaurant? Cracker Barrel. When I've been on the road, just we can always find a Cracker Barrel somewhere, and yeah, their food's really good. They have a lot of cheese too. all, all roads lead to cheese. So what's four and five restaurant? Favorite restaurant? Oh, Shake Shack. How can I forget Shake Shack? That's they have like the best peanut butter shakes there, and good burgers. And I guess fifth, I'm gonna go with Taco Bell. How bad am I? I love that I got Nobu in there with Taco Bell and
And
McDonald's.
McDonald's, right? That's cool.
Yeah, but I mean McDonald's, especially when you have kids, McDonald's. It's like a staple. Like when we can't think of anything else to do, we tell the kids we're getting McDonald's, they're thrilled. So, yeah.
McDonald's is the playground.
Yes.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
My younger son loves it, but you can't go there now because of the pandemic. But they do have certain playgrounds in the restaurants, and when you could, he would always pick up women, even when he was like 3 or 4 years old. He'd always find a girl to like hang out with. I'm like, I hope he has this luck when he gets older. He's very outgoing, my youngest.
Hey, you better keep him while he got him.
I know. It's hilarious. And then I used to joke because my oldest, again, he's on the spectrum. And so he had early intervention. And so in our apartment, there was a period where I think he was like 2, 3, 4 years old. This is my oldest, Michael. And he would just have women come into the house constantly doing physical therapy, occupational therapy, which sometimes would entail like giving him a massage, speech therapy, and something called ABA, which is applied behavioral analysis. So he basically would be at home and women would come to our house and just pay complete and total attention to him. And I'm like, he's gonna like be in high school being like, hey, I'm kind of a big deal. Like, women women come to me. Like he's gonna have this unrealistic approach when he starts dating because he's literally has had women fawning all over him since he could since probably 18 months old.
That's cool. That's cool.
Well, cool for him, yeah.
I wish I had his. Oh man, I wish I had his talents. I'm not that talented. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Let me see me. They go the other way. But yeah, my next question for you is, what 5 countries would you like to visit?
I have never been to France. I really would like to go to France. And then what is hilarious is my parents and my sister have gone to Italy more times than I can count. I've never been to Italy. I've been to Italy in Epcot. I've been to France in Epcot. I've been a lot of places in Epcot, but to actually, I have not been to Italy. So France, Italy. I'm kind of interested in Japan for a lot of reasons. Uh, Although I don't know if I want to fly that far. I don't like flying. If I can transport, I would go. Same with Australia and Hawaii. I really would love to go to Hawaii. I would love to go anywhere warm or anywhere that's not here. After the pandemic, yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. My big thing is I like talking to anyone I didn't give birth to, uh, or that I'm not married to. Like those are the people I want to talk to right now after this pandemic.
Absolutely, I agree. My next question for you is: would you rather go into space or deep sea diving?
Oh my God, both terrify me. I think I'd rather go into space.
Yes, ma'am. What would you
Yeah.
like? Okay, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I would rather go into space just because water just immediately. Well, I guess so many people could go deep sea diving, but not many people could go into space. So that just seems like an incredible opportunity. So if I'm gonna die, I'd rather die doing that.
Do you know the owner of Virgin Mobile?
The owner? No.
He. If you see his face, he's on
Wait,
TV all
wait,
the.
Richard Branson? Is that his
Is
name?
that his name? I think that's his name.
I think so. I love Virgin Airlines, but if it's Richard Branson, I know him. Not personally. I wish I knew him personally, but no.
I mean, shoot, you know Lady Gaga. Even though she corrected you. Well, you know Lady Gaga's
Yes,
mom.
yes. I don't know. I doubt Lady Gaga's mom even remembers me, but I definitely know her.
Oh, all right. So, Ms. Palumbo. All right. So the reason why I asked about him is because the owner of Virgin Mobile, he's trying to launch a spacecraft only for tourists. If that makes sense.
I didn't
Of
know that.
course, it's
Wow.
going to be like $1 million ticket, but still,
Sure.
he's
Yeah.
trying to take regular non-astronauts to space. But yeah, I'm not going though. I'm cool on that because I might end up getting there. We might not be able to get back. So I'm cool. If I go to the water, if I go underwater, I might be able to make it back up. But I might not be able to make it back down from space. It's not for me. If you go, please take pictures and send them to me because I will
I
not be
will.
with you.
And it's terrible because I think I was in fifth grade when the Challenger explosion happened. Do you know the Challenger
Yes,
explosion?
ma'am. Yes,
Oh, it's
ma'am.
awful with Krista McAuliffe. And I was home when that happened. Um, and that I think was the last time I can think of where they're like, hey, we're going to bring a regular person into space. She's a teacher. We're going to teach her, how to do everything in NASA and blah, blah. And then that did not end well. So I don't think they've done that since. Um, so I hope Richard Branson knows what the hell he's doing. He seems like he does.
I would just like the marches on the Capitol. I just want to watch them on TV. I'm not trying to be there. I'll watch it though.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It's funny when I was advocating regularly, when I could actually go places, I would be at the Capitol a lot. And it was really weird watching everything because every May we would go there, and the security was really tight when we went. You had to like take off shit, show them your driver's license, go through a metal detector, and if you had meetings in the House and then you had to go to the Senate, you would have to go through the security at the Senate. And so I was like, how the hell did that happen? So I don't know. But speaking as someone who has actually been there, I would rather you stay on the couch too and just watch it from the television. That was a lot.
Absolutely. It's not for me. I'm cool. Mm-mm. But yeah, my next question for okay, what would you like to see in space? I didn't ask that.
Oh God, I'd just be happy to see anything. You know, I mean, I just I don't think you would know. I don't even know what it would look like until I got out there. Like I think it would just look better than what we see now, like just looking up and seeing the stars. I would imagine we would see planets. It would probably be really weird to see Earth. I think I would freak out. But yeah, I think just to even be there and just to see what it has to show me, I think I'd be open to that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. If you're in space, do you get homesick or planet sick?
Oh God, I think I'd get bed sick. I just love my bed. You
We
know, like
could
I
be
just would
best
want to be
friends.
back in bed. If I could get paid to sleep, I would be golden. That's my favorite thing to do is lay in bed and sleep. I want to be a cat. Think about a cat. They don't do anything that's uncomfortable. They're constantly comfortable. They stretch, they move. I've never seen an uncomfortable cat. That's that's what I want to be.
I would love to be an endorser or a product tester or product guide or anything with Tempur-Pedic for sure.
I have a Tempur-Pedic bed. Yes, I recommend Puffies.
What's that?
But it's a mattress company, and they actually gave me a king size mattress when we moved, and two twin mattresses. And they give for I think every mattress that's bought, they donate one to a homeless shelter. But it's all Tempur-Pedic. Oh, it's
That's
really comfortable.
cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Oh, have you ever heard of the purple pillows? Do you know what that is?
It sounds vaguely familiar, but I'm not sure. What are they?
Okay. I'm not familiar with it, but I've seen it on TV a couple times. It's like this pillow, but it looks like rubber, and it has like a whole bunch of little holes in it, like a wiffle ball,
Mm.
like a golf ball. But it's supposed to be like the most comfortable pillow ever. Like
Ooh.
their slogan is like, "We, if your pillow is this good, you don't need to flip it to the cold side." Yeah, but
Oh, I gotta check that out. That's what I do if my sons have a nightmare. I always say, oh, okay, well, we need to flip it over because you need to write a new dream on your pillow. That's how I get them back
oh,
to sleep.
I wish people told me that. I'm still writing the same dream on my pillow. Cut.
And it's I've started doing it for myself. I flip my pillow over if I have a bad dream. I'm like, oh, gotta. I think it's like a mental thing, but I think it helps. So I say flip that pillow, purple pillow. Sorry.
Absolutely, absolutely. My next question for you is, what are your five favorite animals?
Sorry, I'm laughing. I actually really, I'm not a big animal fan. That's why I'm laughing. Um, I guess cats would be first, but I'm allergic to them, which is a bummer. But I do love cats. Uh, Not the musical, the actual felines. The musical's irritating. Um, Koalas, I think, are really cute. Sea otters are adorable. I do love fish. Isn't that terrible? My answer for what I like to eat and what type of pet I like are the same answer. That's I got to reevaluate that because that's just cold. Um, and what would be my fifth favorite animal? I'm gonna say really cute dogs, but not all dogs. I know people are like love dogs. I do not love dogs. I just don't. We have a neighbor who has the loudest dog. Um, the dog seems nice, but I don't know. Just dogs are just they're like too much like people, and I don't need that in my life. I don't need extra people pooping and yelling at me. But if it's like a cute dog that's like a throw rug, I'm all for it.
You said like a throw rug.
Yeah. There was this one. My friend had one dog that I swear it was like an they call him Prince Edward Spaniel or something. It
He
would
look,
just lay there, and I'm like, that's the type of dog I would get. That's my spirit animal. Just a dog that looks cute and just sleeps.
we could be best friends, me and that dog. We'll have a
Yeah,
great time.
yeah. I'm all about that.
Um, my next question for you is, what are your five favorite drinks?
Mocha light frappuccino. Oh my god, I love that. That's one. I love Coca-Cola. I don't get to drink it very often just because it has so much sugar in it. So whenever I have a Coke, it's like, damn, it's really good. Obviously, I like shakes, as I brought them up a few times. I love shakes and smoothies. I make a lot of smoothies for myself. Um, and what are my two favorite drinks? I don't really drink alcohol because it just makes me fall asleep. So I don't have any fun. Although I like Shirley Temples. I do like Shirley Temples. Oh, and Miami Vices. I do like Miami Vices, but usually I get it without the alcohol. Oh my God, they're really good. My husband made a pretend Miami Vice for me the other night. It was so good. It was so good. Anything I guess that's sugary.
That's cool. That's cool. My next question for you is, do you like to go shopping?
No,
You said that so fast.
I know. I'm so sorry. I really don't. I'm not a big shopping person. I shop like a man. I know what I need. I get in and I get out. I can't with shopping. I hate going to stores to shop. I think my mother ruined me on that because she would sit in the aisles of like Marshalls or TJ Maxx and go through one by one. But I'm like, oh my God, I didn't have the energy or the time. I'm like, if I need a turtleneck, I'm going in, I'm getting a turtleneck, I'm leaving.
For real.
Um, yeah, I don't see the point in malingering.
I think that's cool. All right, so Miss Palumbo, I love your last name,
Do you?
Palumbo, Palumbo, Palumbo,
Do you
Palumbo.
remember the yogurt commercial? What was it, Kayumbo? That's what they called it.
Oh no, and I love commercials.
Yes, this was an old commercial, but so that's what sometimes people in high school would go, Payumbo, which I
Oh,
guess there could be worse things, but yeah,
I missed it. Yeah, Miss Palumbo. I like your name,
thank you. I
even
still
if it
hate it.
means what it means. I know. I seen your YouTube. I know you do.
Yeah, and you thought my dad, because it's his name, he would tell people it meant warrior eagle. I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah, no,
for
A for
real.
effort.
Absolutely. My next question for you is, what are your plans for the next 5 years, and what are your plans for the next 10 years?
I am one of these crazy people who constantly thinks about that. Um, my sister, she's like, God, you like. I think my sister thinks I'm too analytical. Um, but I'm so there's this quote I heard that I firmly believe in, and that is the secret to happiness is progress. And I always have to feel like I'm doing something, which might be slightly nuts. But so I'm constantly thinking about, all right, what do I want my goal this next year to be? What do I want to try? What do I want to do? Um, and so I'm all about writing this book that's definitely, I would say, in the next 5 years, because sometimes it could take like 2 years to write the book, then you edit it, then you do the book tour, blah, blah, blah. So I would love to write this book. Definitely, I'm trying to make more videos myself just because I miss that stand-up comedy outlet. Um, I really do miss that. And that's what I love the most, to be honest with you, about stand-up. I mean, I like making people laugh, but it was so fun talking to people I wouldn't have ordinarily gotten the chance to talk to. And honestly, people can be way funnier than any comic. Um, and there was just so many different audience members who I still remember. Or they shared something with me, or told me a story, or we had a funny interaction when I was on stage. Like I loved all of that, and so I'm definitely trying to build up my YouTube channel, make more videos. Just I don't want to get, this is not an actual medical term, but brain blue balls, where like it all just stays in my head, and then I need somewhere to take it out. So I really need to make sure I keep having different outlets. So that's why I think videos and writing um, are definitely my next thing in the next 5 years. In 10 years, I would love, to be honest with you, I would love to be like Fran Lebowitz, or David Sedaris again, where I could just go and talk, like write and talk, do public speaking, meet people, speak at conferences. The most performing I've been doing the last couple of years is for charities, which I really like. Like I host fundraisers or things like that. And I just think as I get older, I like the idea of getting paid to just be me. Like, can you just show up and be you? Like, that would be great. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So in order for people to even want to hire me to be me, they have to know who I am. And so I think that's my plan. The next 5 years, write this book, put out videos, get people to know who I am, and then hopefully they'll invite me to show up as me for different events, because that'll be the least work possible. I can show up anywhere and be myself. I know myself better than anyone. So who wouldn't want to get paid to do that?
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. My next question for you is, what would you like to tell the future generation of women?
Oh, God. So much. There's like, I feel like I've learned so much. Um, and I love mentoring people, mainly because I want to spare them the heartache that I've had in different areas. But I think the most important thing is I always got in trouble for being funny, um, for being a smart ass. I would get detention, or I would just always get in trouble. And then when I was working in corporate America, because stand-up comedy doesn't pay the bills, I would get in trouble there. Like, but I would like joke with clients, and I wouldn't, let me be clear, I would never say anything wildly inappropriate. I would never say anything offensive. It's not that. There's if I did, then everyone should definitely yell at me. But I joke around, just like I, you know, joke around with you, and I do that very intentionally. Um, Especially if I'm managing people or you're working in an office, it lightens the mood, it keeps people engaged, and it keeps people motivated. And sometimes if a client's a real, I don't know, I've definitely dealt with different clients because I used to do marketing and writing for different companies. Um, if they're really like a bummer, or if you're doing sales or you're trying to like woo somebody, having a sense of humor and thinking outside the box and doing something different than what everyone else is doing, that that is what gets you attention. I was so good at signing on new people because I would do a subject line that was different. I did something yesterday that I don't know if it was funny or nuts, but I swear I'm leading up to the point. So, because I write a lot about different women for Forbes Women, I try to highlight more uh, people, communities that don't get highlighted, kind of similar to you. So, I write about Latina CEOs because they're definitely in the minority. I write a lot about African American women, about small businesses, and so I get all these pitches from people. I have after I finish talking to you, I have about, oh my god, 40 pitches to go through. Like, hey, write about me. I'm awesome.
What?
It's like 40 pitches a day I get. I don't know why, but it's a high quality
Dang.
problem, so I'm not complaining. But some of these stories are amazing, but they would be better not for Forbes. They'd be better for, I don't know, Parenting Magazine or Ebony. And so I got this pitch yesterday from a woman, she's African American woman, and she is selling organic hair products for black hair. And she shared this beautiful story with me about her grandmother and how her grandmother told her to love her hair and hair care. And it was really nice. It's not really appropriate for Forbes. Not, at least not what I write, in my opinion, because it wasn't so much a business strategy as much as it was more like, wow, this is a really cool story and a cool human. So I wanted to pitch it to Ebony. And usually when you pitch something, it's usually like the subject line is pitch, blah, 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 woman hair care, or, time sensitive story about yada, yada. But yesterday was a really long day, and I know Ebony probably gets a bunch of emails. And so I wrote pitch, and then I wrote, hello, Ebony, dot, 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 it's Ivory. Do you know the song Ebony and Ivory?
We live together and yeah, for sure.
Now, how many subject lines do you think they're going to get like that? You know, and either they're going to be offended or they're going to think it's funny. And I'm like, well, screw it. I mean, I'm just going to try to do something different. And it cracked me up. Um, and then I basically put my pitch in the email. But that's the thing that I realized that I would love future generations to get is sometimes the thing that people are like, stop doing that, or criticize you for, or the thing that makes you different is actually the thing that makes you special and unique and the thing that you should be doing. Um, and there's so many stories like that, um, where people are like, oh, I always got, in trouble for being too loud, or I always got in trouble for, I don't know, reorganizing my aunt's house or whatever. And then you're kind of like, well, wait a minute. Just because somebody else thinks that's annoying to them or that's bad, that may be my skill. I may be really great at organizing things. I may be great at making people laugh. Maybe my humor can be used for good things. And so I think my number one thing is if there really is something that makes you different, explore that and figure out how to use it, um, to your advantage. I mean, I know the movie has not aged well, but Dumbo is pretty much all about that. He gets made fun of because of his ears. He's ostracized. His mother's locked up. Everyone's teasing him constantly about it. It makes him an outlier. And then he realizes, thanks to his friend, that that's what makes him awesome. He's the only elephant that can fly. Um, but yeah, that's what I really liked about that movie is that it shows you that the thing that maybe people give you crap for is actually the thing that will make you famous or big or successful.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. My next question for you is what would you like to tell your future self 20 years from now?
That you look fine. I'm always like, like I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like that. But I'm sure 20 years from now, I'm gonna look better right now than I do then. So probably just believe it now and get over it. I'm cracking myself up now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My next question for you is what would you like to tell your children 20 years from now?
Oh God, that I really tried. I tried very hard to be a good mom, but not in the stupid Pinterest way. Like I don't try to be a good mom in the, they have matching outfits and anything like that, particularly because my oldest is autistic. The thing that I try to be very, very mindful of is there may come a time where my youngest has to take care of my oldest. I don't know. Maybe Michael won't need it. Maybe he'll be totally fine, but he may not be. I don't know if he'll ever be able to go to college. I don't know if he'll be able to have a job. I hope he is. And it's not that I've given up on him. I'm just watching him unfold, day by day. But the reality is that if my husband and I aren't around anymore, Matthew is going to have to take care of his brother Michael, or at least look out for him. And so I definitely am very strict and mindful to tell them they need to get along. Like, it's cute. I know brothers argue, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you guys are each other's allies and you absolutely have to look out for each other. Like this is different. There's sibling rivalry. We don't have time for that. Like, we don't. And in your case, you can't. And so Matthew in particular, because he is neurotypical, and I can have more of a conversation with him. We spent a lot of time reading books about autism. For kids, they have like Sesame Street books where Elmo's hanging out with Julia, who's an autistic character. And I try to really make it clear that his brother doesn't talk as much as we do, that his brain works differently, and he has to help look out for him. And I know there are times where I'm probably annoying both of them because I really try to. Anytime they argue, I have this wall in my house. I have it on my Instagram. It's all, how many pictures is it? It's about maybe 22 pictures, and it's right near both their bedrooms. And every time they argue, I bring them over to that wall, and it's only pictures of them hugging, kissing, playing. And I'm like, remember? If they do stand up, they should bring this up. I'm like, you guys love each other. You got to look out for each other. And they're like, oh God, she's going to bring up the wall again. But I definitely think it would be that I tried. I'm really trying to be a good mom, not just today. I'm trying to make sure that they're good humans later on.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's a great answer. My next question for you, Miss Palumbo, is what would you like to tell your husband 20 years from now?
God, I don't know.
Take your time. Take your time.
What would I like to tell him 20 years from now? We made it. I'm glad we can go on vacation. He and I have we have a great marriage, but we have a very hard, we have a hard, um, how do I say it, circumstances, because to have a special needs child, you have to have tremendous patience. There are times where Michael has meltdowns, um, or he's just, unintentionally. He's a really sweet kid, but he can be difficult to communicate with. Um, and so my husband and I always definitely employ our sense of humor, but sometimes one of us will be like, I need a break. So it's all you. Um, so we do hand off things to each other. And sometimes I think we don't get as much time together as typical couples do because we have so much going on. I mean, especially having a autistic child during the pandemic has just been a shit show. Like, there's just no nice way to put it. He's not been loving the remote learning. He's confused about why he's home and we're trying to make him learn. So I think the last couple of months have been particularly challenging. So I do think 20 years from now, I would just love to say to him, we made it. Let's go to Hawaii and sleep in a hammock. That's what I would love. I'm sure it's going to happen. It's just right now in the freezing cold of winter and the deepness of this pandemic, it's just been really hard.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Miss Palumbo, my next question for you is what is something that you would like to tell your husband that you don't get to tell him often?
Oh, I tell him a lot often. I'm trying to think, what would I tell him? I don't get to tell him often. Go ahead and take a nap. I mean, no, no, we don't get breaks. I would love to tell him to take a nap. Actually, today he's not feeling very well. And I said, can you maybe take a nap? And he was like, nope, I got to work. Um, Especially now. we have to work as much as possible because when the kids are home, we can't work. So, right now they're actually doing hybrid learning. So they're in school today, but if they close the school down tomorrow, which has happened, someone tests positive, then we now gotta remote learn. It's just, there's always so much going on. You know how people are like, oh, you have a full plate, but you know how you go to a barbecue and maybe you load up the plate, and you got macaroni and cheese and coleslaw and mashed potatoes and chicken, and then the plate starts to get wet and sag and break through. That is my full plate. I have barbecue paper plate about to fall through. That's me right now.
That's a good plate to me. I'm sorry.
It's a good plate to eat, not a good plate to carry.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. Where the bottom of the plate turning brown from the barbecue sauce. For sure. Mm. But yeah. Um
Yeah.
I'm getting so many confidence points today too, because if I can make a comedian laugh, that's like me taking a NASCAR driver for a test drive in my Honda, and he's saying, "Hey, bro, you can drive. This is a fast car," you know,
It's true.
for real.
Most comics, when someone says something funny, my husband and I were just talking about this, they don't usually laugh. They're like, nice. That was a good one. That was good. They're just usually like, yeah, that one was good. That's my husband usually more. Um, but yeah, you're right. It's not easy to make a comic laugh.
For
And that's
real.
why I was single for so long, by the way, because most guys, like, when they found that I did stand up, they like wanted to out funny me. This one guy said to me, I said, I thought men liked women with a sense of humor. He's like, to laugh at our jokes, not to make them.
For
And
real.
so if I said that I actually started to tell my friends, please don't tell them I do stand up comedy, because then the guy is always like, oh, yeah, I'm funny. And then I'm like, oh, Jesus. Because then they start telling me jokes that I've heard 100 times. I'm just like, oh, stop, just stop. Um,
Mm.
but yeah,
Mm-mm. I don't have no jokes at all.
neither do comics. I mean, they have routines, well crafted routines. They don't get up there and do stupid ass jokes that everyone's heard.
For
Again,
real.
another misconception.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My next question for you, Miss Palumbo, is do you have any shout outs that you would like to make to your friends or to your family?
Oh, that's so sweet. I think my friends and family are probably sick of me giving them shout. Um, I'm trying to think of anyone who I haven't. I give a lot of shout outs to my parents because I just feel like they really deserve it. They were not only great parents, but um, I just, particularly during the pandemic, they're 75 and they're trying to get the vaccine, and they're both so stressed. So I know I've been getting extra shout outs to them. So I'm going to go ahead and give another one to them because they're staying sane and, again, keeping their sense of humor. They miss us. They miss the grandkids. They're in Florida right now, and they cannot get a vaccine. Every day, it's like trying to be the 1-800, like caller on a radio station. My dad and I called this number in Florida because they're like, call at 9 a.m. exactly to try to get an appointment for the vaccine. So this whole week, tomorrow I'm doing it again. We've been calling and we can't get in. We're not winning. So um, yeah, shout out to them.
Damn, made no sense.
No, if don't even get me started. I'll get angry. But
Can
it
they
just
not? All right, so
we
the
need a plan.
Florida's bordering states, I think it's like Georgia, Louisiana, and Alabama. So it's like, can they get a vaccine there, or it has to be interstate?
I think it has to be in the state. But just last night, I saw an article come out that um, people that don't actually live in Florida, like other countries, they don't even live in the United States, have been coming to Florida in particular to try to get the vaccine. And so now they're going to ask people to give proof of residency that you either live there full time or part time. But my parents, they actually do live there part time. Um, so I don't know. It's just one big hot mess, and I just can't help to, but feel that if last year, when we first knew about COVID, or I should say the government first knew about COVID in January, if they actually had a plan, then maybe we wouldn't be in this mess. But what do I know? I mean, I'm just a writer. I've never held office, so maybe there's something I'm not aware of. I don't know.
I understand. I understand. Um, my next question for you is, What would you like people to know about you before they go to your social medias?
Well, that's a really good question. Hmm. What would I want people to know about me before they head to my social media? That I never mean to offend anyone. Like I mean, I can have a very dry, dark sense of humor sometimes, but if you know me, I never intentionally mean, because sometimes I'll make a joke and it will offend people. I mean, it's bound to happen, but it's never my intention. I think so. If you go on my site or sorry, go to my social media or my site or whatever, and something's like, ugh, just know it came from a good place. As a comic, it's sort of your job to kind of say the things that people don't say. Um, and to kind of look at things differently, I think, and try to find the humor in it. But that's not always for everyone. It's amazing sometimes things that I'll say and someone will get offended by it. And I'm like, really? Okay. But you never know. So that's why I say any humor I do, it's never meant to be. Even like at the Friars Club, they asked if I would do a Friars roast. I wouldn't do it because I'm not good at it. I can't go up there and be like, oh, the thing about this guy. Like I would never make fun of anyone intentionally. I would never hurt anyone's feelings intentionally. I just wouldn't. So, yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My next question for you is, how do you feel women are represented in the world?
Globally, it's quite awful. Um, I was on this call a month ago. It's called Equality Now. And when you hear about young girls being forced into marriage, um, rapes um, in India, which is a real problem, and there's like no punishment for it. Brutal gang rapes in India, and then even honor killings. You know, like in Pakistan, if a woman doesn't marry the man that her family wants to. So, I mean, I think it it's definitely something we all still need to focus on. And I don't mean to diminish at all anything that's going on in the United States because we definitely have our issues here. But when you look globally, you're like, oh my God, you know, how can you not care? Um, so I think we still have further to go than people realize. And women's pain are women's pain. So I guess what I'm saying is, even if you're a female and you're being sexually harassed at work, even if it's not the same as like an honor killing, it still needs as much attention because I think anytime any woman is being treated or manipulated based just on her sex or what they can get from her, that's a problem. So I don't know. I think the problem is I research and read too much that I know too much that it's really hard to be like, oh, we're making change. Like I'm thrilled about Kamala Harris. I really am. But I just know too many other areas that still need so much work. So, I mean, I just think we have to stay educated, keep our eyes and ears open, and see how we can make a difference in any small way.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My next question for you is, what do you think needs to be changed for women to be treated equally?
I think there has to be more women in power. Um, because right now it's the men that are making the decisions and they don't even think about it. Last year, I don't know if you heard this or saw this. These men, I think it was in Ohio, either Ohio or Pennsylvania, but they were basically like, if a woman is ectopically pregnant, if she doesn't get surgery to remove, and ectopic means that the embryo's in the fallopian tube instead of the uterus. They're like, they have to, the
I
baby has to
seen
be,
this.
yes, the baby has to be surgically moved from the fallopian tube to the uterus. Now, there's a couple of problems with that. One, that's not possible. Nobody can do it. Nobody. And it's not me being negative. It's physically, medically not possible. And the fact that these guys didn't even ask a doctor or a woman is stupid. And then they were like, and if the woman doesn't do this made up surgical procedure that we think is possible because we're dumbasses, then we're going to prosecute her for murder. What? So if you have an ectopic pregnancy, you can die. It can be incredibly dangerous and fatal. Um, and I just feel like if women were in the room when and actually remember it like got far. It didn't pass that
Right.
bill, but it got far. It made the news, and these morons didn't even think that there was a problem with it. It's like deciding something in a vacuum. So I just think if there were more women to be like, "Hey, hold up, that's nuts."
Absolutely.
Like that's not possible, or whatever. If there were more women in power, then these things wouldn't happen, because that was really close to passing, which still shocks the living hell out of me. I cannot believe they didn't even talk to anybody. If they talked to one doctor, if they talked to a dentist, didn't even have to be a doctor. As an OBGYN, they would be like, you can't do that. I have a BA in theater, and I know you can't do that. The baby needs constant source nourishment. That if you disconnect the baby, they're dead. That's it. Because they're not attached to anything. I mean, oh my God.
I have a BA in theater, and I know that. Like,
Yes.
for real.
Yeah. People, please. Oh my God. Every time I saw that bill come up, I was just like, because again, I get Google alerts on this, and it went on forever. And there were people like lobbying for it. I'm like, you're all morons. Like, I was like, even if this is not a difference of opinion, this is a difference of reality. Like, it's not going to happen. It's like if I said I wanted to take a arm and surgically put it on my head. Like, you can't. I mean, you could, but who the hell would do that?
Absolutely. Are you familiar with Family? I have like two more questions. One more question
Okay.
for you. But are you familiar with Family Guy?
No.
Okay.
Oh, well, yes and no. I mean, I was in the beginning, but not lately. I haven't seen it lately.
All right. So, have you ever seen the segment whenever Peter's on the news and he has a segment where it says, "What grinds my gears"? Have you ever seen that?
No.
All right, so what it does is he has a segment where he's on the news and it's called "What's Grinding My Gears," and then he just starts talking. He says, "You don't know what really grinds my gears." This is a hypothetical. He hasn't said this, but people in front of me at the drive-through, like, why do you not know your order? You come here every day. Like that's just a segment like where he just rant and go on and on and on. I would love to see you do a "What Grinds My Gears" segment.
That well, yeah, there's definitely a couple of things that really, yeah. Well, I could go on. There's definitely a couple of things that get me stabby. That's what I call it. That's one of them. I mean, just the arrogance of people, and then the other. I have to say the other thing too. Last week when people who posted on Facebook, I am going to the Capitol, I support Trump. And then after everything happened, the next day they're like, oh no, it was Antifa. Oh my God, you could not even talk to me. Forget the 24-hour rule. I would need a 24-month rule. I'm like, you do know, like, this is what, okay, hold on. Like, I said this to this one person because she was like, I was there. It wasn't Trump supporters, it was Antifa. I said, let me just ask you a question, okay? I said, if you go on Fox News, there's all these Trump Pence signs, Trump hats, okay? So, like, who are these people? They're clearly Trump supporters, but I said, let's put that aside. I said, let's say you're right. You were there. Let me ask you a question. Are you Antifa? And I'm like, you're not. So you were there and you weren't Antifa. You're a Trump supporter. So you think you were the only one? Well, oh my God, that made me nuts. I wanted to, yeah, I was like, I need to walk away for a bit.
Mm.
That was just dumb. You're posting selfies of yourself at the Capitol, and you're like, oh no, it wasn't me. It was Antifa. Okay.
Do you know oh no, I ain't boom. Next question. All right, so Miss
Mm.
Palumbo, my next question for you is what would you do if you were the president?
Oh, oh, God, I would do a lot. I would listen. That's the first thing I would do. I would listen to people that I don't think get listened to. Because, like I said at the very beginning, I think we have an arrogance problem where we just immediately are like, oh, this person doesn't agree with me, and I just shut them down. I think they have something valid to say. You need to listen. And I think as a president, one of the years that we went to advocate at Capitol Hill, Senator Tammy Duckworth was there and gave us a speech. These are all infertility advocates. And Tammy Duckworth said something that really stuck with me. And all of us really who heard the speech, she was pointing to the Capitol and she's like, that's your house. That's yours. You voted those people there. You know, you pay for that. You own that house. And anyone has every right to go there, make an appointment, don't bring a gun, and to talk to their representatives about things that concern them. And I've done that. I've gone to Albany um, and talked to people there. I've written letters. I've gone to DC, like any of us. And so I think if you're going to take office, on the flip side, you need to listen and be open to listening. So I think that's probably the first thing I would do, and then decide what we really need to focus on.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I would like to say, Miss Jennifer J. Palumbo, thank you so much for coming on my show. Is there anything that I didn't ask you, or is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would like to say?
No, but I'll tell you, you gave me a lot of food for thought. There's some answers or some questions I was like, oh, wow, that's a really, I haven't thought about that's a really good question. So thank you for reaching out. I don't know how you found me. You don't remember how you found me, but I'm glad you found me. It's basically the bottom line.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. You are more than welcome on here anytime, Miss
Oh,
Jennifer.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank
As long as the kids are at school, I'm telling you.
you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.